So, this is a topic that we are kind of familiar with. It's tier lists. The updated Phase 2 class tier list by Sarthe. And this one came out 1 day ago, so I'm really late on this one. But we're gonna take a look at it, see what he has to say. If it's, I don't know if it's top DPS or like top classes, top healing. I'm assuming it's either just talking about all the classes as a whole or top DPS. But we'll have to wait and see. It's a 27-minute video. I'll be stopping it a little bit as well and talking over it while watching. So let's give this one a watch, boys. Let's see if I can just pop this up and let's make sure it's not muted this time. The updated Phase 2 class tier list by Sarthe. It is muted. Got him. Alright. Fixed.
Halfway through Phase 2. There's been a lot of buffs and a lot of nerfs, and a lot of classes now have the gear that actually leaves them where they were going to be placed around this time. Shamans happen to get buffed to oblivion. Hunters got nerfed, but they're kind of exactly where they were gonna be around this time. But first, before we even do, just look at this. We're gonna look at Warcraft logs. And today also, I do want to say, I will rate some classes off of their utility as well.
Ooh.
Like Shadow Priest instead of just its raw DPS, because it really isn't a good representation of what a Shadow Priest does to say that its DPS is lower when a Shadow Priest is like by itself one of the most invaluable classes to the entire raid.
Yeah.
Right? Like a Shadow Priest itself as one class, I would rather have one Shadow Priest than almost anything else. I guess maybe not than over a Shaman, but... And that's where Feral will also, I guess, maybe get some juice. So first of all, looking at all of the bosses individually, really quickly, all of the bosses individually. These first two bosses have the low armor. But if you look at all of the bosses individually, we've got mostly warrior topping here, some mages coming in, some shamans coming in, and all of these hunters are early, but it's a little bit spread, but this is like what you would expect, right? Warrior absolutely at the top here on the first boss. There's no cleave technically on this boss. A lot of people think that you could cleave on the ad. It doesn't count towards the boss, but there is a tiny bit of cleave on the second boss. Viscous Fallout does have some cleave. All warriors here, one hunter up there, some mages. Nick, shout out to Nick, who's an absolute legend, and one warlock up here with some of the shamans. Same thing though, and all of the like rogue haters. Rogues can do amazing DPS on these first two bosses. Then we have more mages, a little bit more spread out there. Cool, but here's where it obviously starts to change a little bit. Electrocutioner.
Wait, shaman?
Shaman and warrior at the top, tied up here with some warlocks. Now you're starting to see like, holy shit, shamans are crazy because shamans got ridiculously buffed, okay? Crowd pummeler. This is where...
Okay, so I'm rerolling shaman. I'll see you on the other side, boys. Yeah, we're swapping factions. What is that, man? Okay, now we're seeing the crowd pummeler. That's where my class comes in. Warlock mage, warlock mage. Okay, yeah, nice.
Where we'll see all casters. Warlocks, mages, shamans down here, but all warlocks and mages and a couple shamans in here. Couple shamans. Mechanical menage a trois. All mage.
Yeah,
this is a mage
yeah.
fight through and through. Some warlocks, and like if a warrior gets to cleave, they can do crazy DPS. This is 800. I'm covering it. This is 820 DPS. 820 DPS from a warrior on this fight.
How?
Cleave, whirlwind. This is what's gonna happen later on in this phase. Like it's literally gonna be like this, like so much. Imagine not cleaving. As we get further in the phase, this will always be what you do. You cleave like crazy. Also, if you guys didn't know, Sionsu here getting rank 1 in the world on this fight, and I'm pretty sure he's bringing leader of the pack. This is a leader of the pack feral, and everyone thinks feral druids can't bring leader of the pack and do damage. This is rank 1 in the world. Apparently it is what it is. Kichizen had true shot aura. Yeah, you have to have, I mean, if you want to parse, you're gonna need one of your weapons. Yeah, he's a marksman hunter. What a Chad. What an absolute Chad to bring in a marksman hunter just to pump. I love that. Okay, moving back all the way. All right, crowd pummeler. Okay, mechanical menagerie. That's a mage fight. And Mechgear Thermoplug, the worst fight ever for warriors. This fight sucks so much. Like rage gen on this fight is so lame. Warlocks, mages, shamans, all at the top. There's a trend here. There is a trend here. Warlocks, mages, shamans, and warriors. That is literally the trend. It is just exactly what it is. Warriors are phenomenal this phase. Like I literally have said so many times that they were going to be. If you look at speed runs, a lot of them are bringing multiple warriors, or you're going multiple casters. Now, if we look at damage percentiles, we look at this really fast. Before we start rating everything, we're just going to break down this, and we're doing over the course of one day. We could kind of do over 1 week now that they've had the buffs. And this is at 99th percentile. We could go at max realistically. Okay, so here, max percentile over 1 week. We've got Fire Mage, Warrior, Warlock, Enhanced Shaman, Melee Hunter, a Feral Druid that did really, really well, Ellie Shaman. If we go to 99 though, this is like more representative, because right at the max, it up until around this week, it was really good to look at the max percentile for where your class is gonna kind of pan out in like damage, mainly because cheesing is really, really starting to happen now. And the difference between a 99 and max was like, what is a good run, right? So Fire Mages, Enhanced Shamans on average are doing phenomenal in the raid, and Warlock. These three classes are kind of in their own league, followed by really good Warrior that has a good group. And Melee Hunter does not need a good group. Melee Hunter can still just put out consistently good damage without needing a good group, right? A really good warrior with really good groups, and you need things like I was showing you guys earlier, which for some reason people just don't understand how important this is, but debuffs and buffs are everything in classic World of Warcraft. They're literally everything in classic WoW. Yeah, so go to 50th percentile. It's more representative. Melee Hunter needs Wild Strikes, but not nearly as much as Warrior needs Wild Strikes. Not nearly as much as Warrior needs Wild Strikes. You don't get nearly as much. Range Hunter is in the gutter, but don't worry, guys, because Range Hunter is just going to be actually a Spell Power Hunter now, instead of Melee Hunter against mechanical bosses doing less damage than Spell Power Range Hunter, potentially. So don't worry about that. We're all going Spell Power Hunters.
No.
And you're just going to have double spell power gear, and you're going to use things like double lesser wizard oils, and you have to get the irradiated set. So get griefed. Anyways, back to it. Instead of like being like, who's gonna bring Mechatork Shredder? Nah, I would rather be a spell power Chad. Let's rank things. You know what? The only thing that goes into the why bring it category is Frost Mage. And I know a lot of people love to argue that their Frost Mage should be brought to the raid. It did get buffed today, but like, it's so...
Dude, if you're playing Frost, bro, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. We have Fire, we have Arcane, we have Frost. If you're playing Frost, you're doing it wrong. I understand that you probably want to like keep your boosting spec to save your 1 gold every 3 days, but bro.
Interesting to want to play Frost Mage. Right? It's so interesting to want to play Frost.
You want to play Frost Mage when it's like way below Ranged Hunter. Like, looking at that chart, it's just like, why would you want to play Frost? Why would anyone want to play Frost? You could go in as a Fire, strip yourself of all your gear, and still do more. Just like be a naked Frost Mage dancing on like a mailbox, and throwing 1 living bomb.
Frost Mage, when it's so weak compared to like everything else that's so good, and you could just play Fire Mage, which is literally the best. Like, I don't understand the want to play Frost Mage when Fire Mage is just the best. So it is in the why bring category. I'm sorry, Frost Mages, it is in the why bring.
Yeah, but it is in the why bring. It's like, you always have that when you have 3 specs of the same. It's like, why would you bring a Affliction Warlock DPS as well, who's like refusing to go, for example, Destro? This is the same in every expansion, right? Warlocks in TBC, they only really had 1 spec to go as well. Warlocks in Classic WoW, you wouldn't really bring a Warlock that refuses pump Shadow Bolts in Classic WoW, would you? Back in the days? Or like, yeah, difference between a Subtlety Rogue, Combat Rogue. If Frost sucks, don't play Frost. Pretty easy.
Bring category, even with a mediocre group. Okay, but in the Chad S tier, we already saw it. Fire Mage, where's Warlock? Warlocks were in the Chad S tier, and then they got buffed today. Literally today. Blizzard was like, they don't actually do enough. We're gonna have them buff them because there's a rune that nobody likes to use because it's not good. We're gonna buff that. And on average, it's about a 3 to 5% damage buff for Destro Warlocks, but it could be more if you get perfect RNG. Who else goes into the S tier, guys? Enhancement Shamans. Enhancement Shamans now are also in the S tier. Ellie Shaman can do phenomenal. You can see it here, right? If we go to max percentile, Ellie Shaman can do phenomenal over a range of 2 weeks. Gross.
Okay.
But it's very RNG. Very, very RNG. And on average, it's going to be a lot lower than that, right? Like it's very RNG, it's very solid, but it's not S tier. If we're looking at it in comparison, there are three classes that are shine above everyone else. Straight up, these classes just shine above everyone else. There's like no comparison. You don't need a BIS group built around you. You just can do better, right? Like these classes shine above everyone. That's just what they are, okay? Melee Hunter has been brought down to A tier for everyone. At the top level, still kind of A tier. It's just below these guys. And that is behind, we're just going to say Warrior's Fury for now, but you can be Fury Your Arms. Behind Warrior. The best Warriors are peeking up towards here. The best Warriors are peeking up towards here.
Yeah.
But for the sake of like everyone being in a decent place, it is at a high level below Warrior. At the top level should be way below Warrior. And for almost everybody, it is Warrior is way below this.
Probably
right?
B tier.
Warrior might even be B tier in your average group.
Yeah, B tier.
Or C tier in your average group.
Yeah.
So Warrior has the biggest stratification. And this is where I'm just going to put this like this so you can see it.
It kind of goes back to what he said earlier. Warriors, like, not just for Warriors, but buffs and debuffs are everything in Classic. So when you have a Warrior, you need to make sure the group is set up for the Warrior. I believe even True Shot Aura would be good, right? So having that for 10% attack power. You would go for Homunculi, reducing the armor values. Fairy Fire, reducing armor values. Curse of Recklessness, or Curse of Recklessness, right? That's the right one. And you need to have Wild Strike, leader of the pack. Those are just the ones that came off the top of my head, but just debuffs and buffs, they are absolutely everything. So when you're making a group, just keep that in mind. And you need to make sure that you think about who you want to pump. Because if you want to have a ranged pump, for example, you want to have a Boomkin that brings in critical strike from Boomkin form as well, when you want range to pump. But if you want to have a melee pump, you might want to have more of a melee focused comp, and then maybe stack the range with more like healers and people doing more support. I don't know, it just depends. You can even have two perfect groups, like a perfect range and a perfect melee group, but just make sure the buffs and debuffs are working in your favor.
Your average group Warrior is down here. Your good Warriors are here or up here. Probably C tier with the 50. Yeah, if you're a 50 parsing Warrior, what you're losing the Shadow Priests at this point.
That's me.
I don't know. I'm sorry for laughing.
Yeah, that's me. You're laughing at me, bro.
Okay. I'm sorry for laughing. Okay. Warrior and Hunter are very, very close. In a good group, you're probably going to see a Warrior win on most fights, but the reason why Hunter can win on overall throughout the raid is specifically because Warrior gets griefed so much harder on the high armor fights. But the low...
It should also be said that Warriors are very good when it comes to speedrunning and parse runs, because they react very well to quick clear times. Due to how Flagellation works, I think that's the one, right? And a couple of their runes, they just react really well to a fast kill. So you want to make sure your group is set up to be able to kill the bosses fast. The longer the boss stays alive, the worse it is for that Warrior, and the worse that Warrior will look on paper as well. Fast kill times, good. Long kill times, bad. While some other classes will be able to maintain their DPS a lot more on longer fights.
Low armor fights, Warrior is here, right? The first two fights, Warrior is literally here. The first two fights is Warrior here. But the raid isn't those first two fights. The raid is 6 fights, which brings it down to here, right? So really good Warrior, S tier. Your like good Warriors, A tier. Your average warrior, C tier. Yeah. Your average warrior is absolutely C tier. Okay. Now the interesting thing here is actually, oh, this kind of sucks. Nothing else is in, like nothing else is here. You can have an Ellie shaman that peaks up here, but it's super RNG. It's not like consistently here. Ellie shaman is probably the top of the next group of classes, right? It's the top of the next group of classes for Ellie.
Yo, Sarthe, have a good night, my friend. I will see you tomorrow, hopefully.
Shaman. You can make an argument that it's right there at the 99th percentile, but you can also make the argument that it's not right there at 100th percentile, right? Like it's, you can make an argument for at the 95th percentile, it can beat warrior. That's where warrior falls off fast, guys. Warriors fall off very fast. Actually, fire mage, no, fire mage stays really, really good. Fire mage, like if we even look at this 50th percentile, right? Fire mage is even the highest DPS in the 50th percentiles because it's just like, it's just, how bad do you have to be at mage to be bad, right? So Ellie shaman can do really, really well. I don't even know if this should be like an A tier or an A minus tier, and this should be a B tier, and this should be a C tier, and then we just don't rank frost mage, right? Like it's like an A minus tier. I don't know if that's fair. Ellie is the next thing that's close, right? Ellie is the next. Arms is the better spec right now. I'm just differentiating between, and okay, once we get more gear and faster kill times, you're potentially going to go Fury, right? Or you'll respec mid-raid. So I'm just differentiating it specifically. Good warriors, average warrior. Most of the warriors you play with are here, right? Most of the warriors everyone plays with are right here. That's just where it is, okay? Most of the warriors you play with. Now, enhancements also, the Giga S tier tank. Also, Demo, we're going to say that for Demo as a tank. We're just going to write this as tank. Okay, this is tank warlock. Tank warlock also reaches S tier.
Yeah.
S tier classes: fire mage, destro, enhance, Demo, tank warlock. This is both tank and DPS shaman, both tank or both DPS and tank warlocks, both tank and DPS mages. Sorry, DPS and heal mages, and both DPS and heals priests. But really, you don't even need to bring a heal priest anymore. You bring a shadow priest, and shadow priest damage is in the gutter. Okay, don't get me wrong, shadow priest damage is in the gutter, but shadow priests are one of the most high valuable classes potentially to bring. Their damage might be mediocre, but at like a, if you go down towards your 90th percentile, they're doing pretty decent damage, but they bring so much healing. They bring so much healing. They bring homunculi, which can put all of your melee DPS online, so your warriors don't have to sunder, because they weren't going to sunder anyways, because warriors don't know how to press that button. The healing mage, this arcane is purely healing mage. If you don't understand that, then this is going over your head a little bit. There are now shadow priest. A lot of people will see this and clip it and be like, this is so stupid. Shadow Priest can't be A tier. Again, their healing is the entire reason why you can enable runs to be one healer runs.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people are bringing only one healer, but a Shadow Priest, if you bring one Shadow Priest to your run just got infinitely easier.
Yep.
Okay? Your run just got infinitely easier.
They heal a lot from Vampiric, and they also bring Homunculi, which really helps at the melee. It's just a really good support class, plus they're doing really good DPS while being support class, while helping both the healers out and helping the melee. It's a really good class to have. There's a reason why we are recruiting 3 more Shadow Priests that we want to have for raids.
Arcane mages as healers, as like the set, like a heal. It's just so nice to bring this, right? It's doing so much damage throughout the run, and that's what it is. Now, interestingly, you can bring like anything else as like the healer. You can bring a resto shaman, you can bring a disc priest, you can bring a holy paladin, as even though everyone loves to meme on them, and you can bring a resto druid. They all live in like their own world of like they're good. So like, I don't know if I would argue one is.
I also realized that we have been watching basically the half of the video now with me on the other side. But to be fair, he's moved sides as well on his face cam. So I'm just moving mine away now so we can look at his face while he's going through this, okay? Yeah, I'm moving myself to like the other side.
Is better than the other, but we can take a gander, right? We can take a gander. I am not a pro at heals, so I can't. That's a disc priest. That's a holy paladin. Disc priest. That's a resto druid. That's a resto druid, resto shaman. These are the fastest runs in the world. That's one priest and no shadow. This is one priest. Did they fucking bring in an enhanced healer or what? Is it a healer? Oh, okay, all right. Don't worry. This is the druid is basically healing, which a druid should be doing anyways. So like all of them are really good. All of them are really good. It's hard to rate them because they are all really good. It just, yeah, exactly. Like the rest of the raid is what constitutes what your healer comp is gonna be. The rest of the raid, what comp you're bringing for the raid can constitute really what your healer comp is, right? Let me just ignore showing you guys, of course, that the shunt. We're all going Spellhance Hunter. Congratulations. Okay. Now for tanks, obviously, like I said, it's literally shamans deleting everyone, alive deleting people, and like this is a fully ret Chinese. It's just shamans. It's just shamans and maybe warlocks. Okay, if you're looking at damage, but like shamans got like a 30% damage buff, and then on top of that, a week later, they gave them 20% extra attack power. Weird flex, Blizzard. Weird flex. Okay. Survival Hunter, I'm not really going to rate you because you're going to be a BM.
I'm leveling a shaman, boys. You're buffing shamans with 30% and then 20% to my enhancement shaman when I want to level 1 anyway for the 2-handed runes, so hell yeah. Give it to me.
I'm Hunter now. Ranged Hunter, C tier. Range Hunter, your average Range Hunter,
yeah,
I mean, no. Let's look at this. This is an interesting one. Okay, if you look at like 50th percentile, nope, not even there. Your average Range Hunter can't even beat your average warrior at 50th percentile. And that's like, you're playing against the bottom of the barrel here, right? You're actually not, this guy is not even playing the game, and you are. Range Hunter is in the biggest gutter of all time.
Oh my god.
Off these alerts really fast for you guys. Sorry, I apologize. Now, Range Hunter, now that it can go Spell Hunter, Range Hunter, now that it'll be Spell Hunter, potentially right there. Is that hilarious? Yes. Is it a meme? Still yes.
Yeah.
Until people test it out more and see if it actually becomes it. Thank you, Blizzard, for buffing Range Hunter.
Dude, if Spell Hunters become a thing, and the hunters in my raid start taking my spell gear, like my caster gear as a mage, I'm gonna be fuming. Like, pissed. That's not happening. You're not taking the melee gear and then taking the ranged gear and now taking the caster gear. Like, we're leaning into all loot being hunter loot. At the moment, the only loot that isn't hunter loot is pure healing gear. Which, trust me, they will find a way to make that hunter loot as well. Oh, I need it for my mend pet, bro. Yeah, it's coming, man. Hunter healers.
Hunter by 3 to 5% damage. Feral Druid DPS probably goes into the A- tier. You bring one on, more so on Alliance. If you run a melee comp on Horde, Enhanced Shaman is just so good. Leader of the Pack, yes, is good. Definitely good. Is it worth it over another Fury Warrior if you're like playing seriously? I don't know. So I don't know. It definitely is not in it's not in the same tier as Fury Warrior and BM Hunter and like a good Ellie and the Shadow Priest utility. Leader of the Pack, Fairy Fire are very, 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 very good. Fairy Fire does not stack with, let me show. Fairy Fire does not stack with this axe, this awesome super duper chat axe. Does not stack with Fairy Fire, so you will use Fairy Fire, but ideally you have like a ranged. If you're on Alliance, you have a Feral Druid. Feral Druids are great on the first 2 bosses. Guys, irradiated set. It's coming along. All right, I started that like weeks ago. All right, Feral Druid is good. It's good, but it also feels really bad. Like your damage feels really bad. The first 2 bosses, your damage feels great, but then it just feels bad. You get punished. Druids feel like they were punished this phase. But you bring more utility than the rogue. You're very strong in the first two fights, but also Feral Druid tanks are now fucking great. Like, maybe let's rank them right below Enhanced Tank and Demo Tank. But realistically, Feral Druid tanks are phenomenal right now.
Yeah.
Feral Druid tanks are phenomenal right now, but not as good in a vacuum as an enhanced and demo tank. But in certain group comps, absolutely better, right? In certain group comps, absolutely better. So you could fight for it, but in a vacuum enhanced tank, Warlock tank will beat Feral Druid tank. Feral Druids should play leader of the pack. You're all griefers if you're not playing leader of the pack. You're going for your own individual DPS, but if we look at like something like this is a druid playing leader of the pack, like you can do just fine. He's playing leader of the pack. He's rank 1 in the world in this raid, and he's playing leader of the pack. Yes, it sucks to have to do that. Yes, it absolutely sucks to have to play leader of the pack, but it's kind of griefing your raid more than it is helping you. The argument against leader of the pack is because you lose single target DPS, but it's like the similar argument to like a hunter playing a melee hunter or a ranged caster hunter, right? A ranged spell damage hunter, but you know, in a ranged spell damage hunter, you have to have another hunter bringing aspect of the lion. So Feral DPS down to B tier. All right, Toto said down to B tier. If we were to look at Toto, if we were to look at Toto, Toto just said down to B tier, and he's got a 100 on every single fight. Yeah. Balanced Druid also down here in B tier, unfortunately. Kind of feeling very mediocre. You're not having a great time. Ret Druid always down here. You know, you're having a bad time. One day that was the meme. He got it all like week 1. Yeah,
oh no.
You can't parse anymore. Is there anything actually? Maybe I didn't need this A- tier. Maybe I needed a B+ tier, not an A- tier. So I can put Feral Druid up here and Ret up here, because the utility they bring, right? You're bringing buffs. Because the utility you bring, you can be there.
Yeah.
And that's where you can put rogues, unfortunately, here. You can argue that you can win in some situations.
You have to be careful, man. Simonize is going to be mad at you now. Be careful where you put the rogues.
But the problem is you just don't bring buffs to the rest of the raid. I mean, the balanced druid realistically could just be healing the whole time, right? Like that's what you should be doing. But if you're looking at a pure balance, you're feeling bad. Balanced druid should be doing damage and healing because of the heals. The +3% crit doesn't bring you up. It's still, you're still down here. Bringing that crit for your fire mage and destro doesn't bring you up enough. Yeah. And this marksman hunter B tier is only if you're playing, guys, we're only playing marksman hunter B tier if you're a spell hunter. A real marksman hunter is down here in C. A real ranged hunter is down here in C. This is a spell hunter, potentially, if it actually pans out, but it could be completely cope, and it is whatever. Yeah. Balance might bring buffs for your casters, but you don't really need them. Whereas a Shadow Priest brings so much utility. Combat Rogue, you wouldn't bring it. There's no point, right? There's no point. Now, if we were to look at Prot Warrior, can be amazing, but your tank is really decided on your composition. Like there's 2 tanks that stand above the rest, another tank that is like a decent third, but your tank is purely brought by your composition. So you can absolutely bring Prot Paladin, you can absolutely bring Prot Warrior. All tanks are great.
I will say, on the topic of tanks, Bear tank or like Feral tank has been performing way better than I was expecting them to. Plus, you take away the necessity of bringing, for example, a cat feral with wild strikes, because the feral bear brings wild strikes. And if you have a good group, that bear can bring wild strikes on every single boss. On Menagerie, if he's solo tanking, he might want to swap to survival of the fittest. In many cases, it depends on your group once again, but yeah, the bear can bring wild strikes on pretty much every single boss fight then, and you take away the necessity of having a feral cat, allowing you to have, for example, 1 extra melee hunter, or 1 extra warrior, or just like something that can pump a little bit more than maybe a feral druid can on the DPS meters. So I really like feral tanks, plus it's in my guild, which isn't really the most hardcore, but we're doing well, doing like sub 1 hour clears and sub 45 minute clears, and the one tank that I think is the best for solo tanking on the alliance side is a feral tank, like a bear tank. It's the only one that I've had experience with solo tanking, so yeah, I like them, I do, and I was not expecting to like them.
Prop Paladin is like Ret, realistically, and Devastate got buffed, but it depends on your comp, right? You'd bring a Balanced Druid over a Rogue always. I don't disagree that you would bring a Balanced Druid over a Rogue always, but a good Rogue, like, it kind of just feels bad for Rogue, and a good Rogue is doing decent damage, especially on like some, like the other fights, right? A good Rogue is doing great damage.
Yeah.
And Rogue is like very simple to play, but yeah, maybe Balanced Druid does take over with the utility. Yeah, that is fair to say. And Rogue only excels over the Balanced Druid on the first 2 fights, right? Rogues excel on the first 2 fights, way over Balanced Druid, right? Grubby, Viscous Fallout, way over Balanced Druid. But then once it kind of matters, Rogue and Feral Druid are just down here licking their thumbs. You know, this is the worst fight for Warriors. It's final Electrocutioner, Crowd Pummeler. Again, losing to Balanced Druid. Yeah, Balanced Druid, more vital than a Rogue. But still, more often than not, you would rather bring a Feral Druid to most group compositions. Ret Paladin can bring the buffs if you don't have another Paladin slot, so that's solid. But it is nowhere near as good as Shamans. And this is where the big thing is. Shamans are just in another level now. Enhanced Shaman just in another level. The buffs were unbelievable to catch them up. It was always going to be, like, it literally was always going to be, like, let's get rid of this for the sake of right now. It was always going to be, like, these two are interchangeable. And then you would move, like, these, like, down, sure. It was kind of, like, going to be, like, this world. Whereas Mage, Warlock were the 2 Chads of this phase. And then it was going to be Melee Hunter and Warrior, the next 2 Chads. Shaman can go down too, or whatever. But they just decided, Blizzard just decided, they were like, let's make it Enhanced Shaman's a lot better. You know? So Enhanced Shamans are in a really good spot. I'm very happy for Enhanced Shamans because they were in a really bad spot at the beginning of the phase and they needed it. So it's absolutely amazing. You guys have issues with it? If you do, it is what it is. Arms is just representative of your average warrior, the warrior you see in your group. Spell Power Hunter, I rated up here. But if you're seeing a ranged hunter, you're probably seeing this. Mage, not high enough. Yeah. I would love for them to buff Rogue. I would love for them to buff Feral Druid. Everything else I think is in a very solid spot. I mean, ranged hunter is fucking the worst thing of all time, but yeah. Isn't Prop Pally like insane? Let's just take a look at this. Is tank rankings. This is tank rankings. Let me make this bigger for you guys so that this gets through everyone's heads really fast. This is tanks.
Okay, now he's moving sides again. So now I move sides as well then.
Chinese Paladin in an hour and 27-minute run. Next. A second Chinese Paladin in an hour and 58-minute run.
Actually,
and
though.
here is a Paladin in a 42-minute run.
Yeah, okay.
But it, like I was saying, your tank and healer comp very much depends on what the rest of your group is. Your tank and healer comp very much depends on what your group is. Warriors are fine. They are though. Warriors are fine though, right? Again, if we just look, like, Warriors are fine though, right? If you go to certain fights, like no one gets even 1256 DPS. Again, Warriors are more than fine. The last boss is the worst boss ever for Warriors. 1265 DPS. Okay, we can look at fights where Warriors do poorly. And Menagerie, Warriors will get better as they all start cleaving. Okay, Warriors still doing fine. Now, if we look at the next fight, no, you'll never see a Warrior. This is all casters. Crowd Pummeler is just a caster life, but that's okay. The raid is very different this time. That's okay.
I like
this
it,
is
man.
all casters and shamans have some spell damage and stuff, right? That's okay, but Warriors are totally fine. Warriors are absolutely fine. They're phenomenal. All right. So that is honestly an overall ranking of where the classes are now in phase 2. Where the classes are in phase 2. Isn't Arcane Mage B? Arcane Mage is a quick summarization. Demo Lock is tank lock. Enhanced Shaman is both shamans. This is both versions of shamans. Arcane is a healer. Shadow Priest is here because of its heals. Ellie has a ton of RNG.
Let me see here. I started fresh on a new server. Which professions would you recommend to make some gold? Urbanism and mining, you can never go wrong with those, and don't sleep on cooking. Cooking is a tertiary profession that anyone can grab, so you can like grab your primary ones and then grab that one as well. So herbalism, mining, cooking, and also fishing. Fishing is really nice and doesn't take up like a slot, right? Tank prices is like meh anyways, can't really say what's the best tank. Yeah, like Sarthe said, the tank that is best for your group depends on your group, right? It depends on the group setup. So if you have a feral druid DPS, you probably don't want to bring a bear tank, and it's just like to make the group work. All the tanks are really good right now, if you ask me. If you look at top 100 tanks, it's basically just a DPS that plays with taunt while having solo heal or zero healing it, and like 99% of the groups ain't gonna clear with that. Yeah. I mean, the same thing is like, warriors are absolutely smashing on Warcraft logs, they're doing so much DPS, but if you're pugging, where are the warriors in your pugs? Like, first of all, how many of you bring warriors in your pugs? And secondly, how many of those warriors actually do 800 DPS? Like, the difference between a speedrunning guild or a top 100 parse run and a regular run is astronomical. Warriors, for example, they need to have fast kill times to get those parses. Heal logs are the biggest troll, like the only way to get heal logs is effing up on purpose. Yeah, that plus you have to solo heal. So like if you want to log as a healer, you solo heal, you bring as few support classes as possible, and you stand in the fire. And you heal yourself. So you stand in like a mechanic you're not supposed to be in, and take damage, and heal yourself, and parse. And just utilize all the mana you have. It's weird, man. Parsing as a healer, I will never understand. Let's get back to the last minute here. Actually, last 30 seconds.
Fury Warrior and Arms Warrior are separated specifically because one is counted as DPS. I'm counting one as your good warriors, the good warriors you play with, and these are the average warrior you play with in your raid most of the time. And this hunter can go up here if it's spell power, but why bring a ranged hunter for fun, I guess? Maybe it will. It honestly looks like there's potential for ranged hunter to do better than melee hunter on high armor bosses. I don't know if that's cope. I can't give you a good real estimate of that. And like B tier doesn't mean you're bad. It's like you can clear the raid with anything.
Dude, no. B tier means you're bad though. B stands for bad. Alright. Yo, I was gonna comment on this. How to clear Gnomeregan in 18 minutes, now beat. So you're telling me you guys got this world record of 1817, which has been beat. And I thought we were doing okay. We were getting down to 4 to 45 minute clears. And I thought we were doing okay. We're not a speedrunning guild by any means, but 45 minutes, I was happy. Then I see this, 18 minutes. You guys are crazy. A good video by Sarthe though. If I can just scroll back a little bit, you can check out the summary here. That's the tier list and what it looks like. How do you feel about that? I mean, there's a lot of S tiers and a lot of A tiers, but I'm quite happy with what this looks like. And it's also like relative to not just topping DPS, but a mix of top DPS, performance, and class synergy and like what they bring. So like feral DPS, probably if it was only based on... if feral druid was only based on DPS, it would have been lower, but they do bring leader of the pack. They can also go for bomb duty on the last boss by going Sunfire Rune and killing the bombs. I agree with you. I think balance should probably be higher. It's a high B tier, plus the fact is that you can bring a Boomkin as a off healer as well, like Boomkin with Wild Growth, and then they also keep bringing the spell critical strike through Boomkin form. Boomkins, like the 3% crit, is needed for every caster to parse. I agree, 100%. Boomkin should be at least one bump up. It should be above Ret, if you ask me. So feral DPS, then Boomkin. Don't say that about balance. Say that is B tier, so we get another buff. Oh yeah, true. Never mind. Either way, good video. I'm gonna leave a link to it in the chat as well, so you can check it out. And yeah, go show Sarthe some love. He's doing really well. Is he gonna link the video a couple of times there? Is Ret horrible? Not horrible. It's just not the top pick.